hope everybody had a great day. Thank you for tuning in this evening for our class. We are making what I call healing bags, and it's kind of exciting. It is, and you're doing it. If you made the tote bag, then you're doing it with the leftovers of that fabric, and if not, you can grab some fabric. It's a small piece. It's not a big piece. I think I measured 9 by 18. It's actually, let me show it to you. So this is the rest of my fabric that I used from the tote bag. And if you didn't see the tote bag from the last few classes, this is it. Show it to you this way. This is the tote bag that we did in class, and it's a very simple project. It's sewing 101 project because you're sewing straight lines, and I did it with the sewing machine, and I also did it hand sewing. Let's see if I can find. I did hand sewing also, so you can see where I showed how to hand sew this as well, because you do not need a sewing machine to make this. Even what we're making tonight, you don't need a sewing machine. And so I'll do it both ways again this evening to show you how there's the stitching. And it's only in white because I wanted you all to see my stitches, but of course you would do it in the same color as your fabric. Hey Tasha. Hey everyone. So this is the tote bag. If anyone would like to share, just let me know if you've done yours, if you'd like to share it, and I'll bring you on screen. If not, it's not too late. This is an 18 by 18 square, and then the straps I think were 6 by 30, and I have also put the videos up on my YT, so you can go back and watch this class and all the classes before it that shows you how to thread the machine and how to cut your fabric properly, and how to cut and complete your tote bag. So tonight we're going to do what I call a healing bag, and let me just measure this real quick so y'all know how big my fabric is. Yeah, this is 9. Yeah, this is a 9 by 18 piece. It does not have to be this big. So your piece does not have to be this big. You could have had a quarter of a yard piece of fabric to do the same thing. And what a healing bag is, so this is along the lines of making a pillow, but instead of putting stuffing in it, we're going to put rice, which holds heat. Rice holds heat and it holds cold. So we're doing it with 100% cotton, because cotton is very forgiving, and it's not going to, if you put it in the freezer, it's not going to, it can get wet, but it dries pretty quick. And then it's good in the microwave if you're heating it, because you want it to be a heating bag. Then it's good in the microwave too. That's why I say we're only using 100% cotton for our projects right now. So the healing bag will have rice in it, and I'm going to show you, because you can also add lavender to it. And lavender is a good relaxant, and it's a good healing herb. So it's good to have inside your bag too. You don't have to, but when I've made this before, I like to put lavender in it because it smells good too, and that the smell is aromatherapy. So while it's working on whatever you're putting this bag on, say you had a long day and your back is aching, you either heat it up or put it in the freezer, and then you can put it on your back, like sit on your back or your knee or your shoulder, wherever the ache is. And the lavender helps with that healing, but the rice is good because it kind of sits. It's almost like a heating pad if you heat it up, or a cold bag if you put it in the freezer. So that's what we're working on tonight. And remember, if you do not need a sewing machine to do our projects, but I do like to start with showing you how to thread the machine. So I'm gonna go off of me so you all can see. Okay, so I turn it on, and again, my settings are automatically, the automatic settings when I turn it on is on 00, which correlates with my stitch, which is, let me bring you closer. My stitch, which is a straight stitch with the needle off to the left, and then my setting is 00. 2.5 is too small. I like to make it 3 or 3.5. In this case, we're gonna go 3.5. All right, and then let's thread. And I like to do this at the beginning of every video because of every class, because you get used to, or you can see how, even though machines, you may have a different type or brand, and that's okay because they are different, but they are a lot alike. So I like to do the threading so that everyone can see, get an idea of the basics of how to thread. If you have a different machine, maybe you have an older machine, and you don't, and it's totally different because it's not as new or as, then let me know and I can always help you, walk you through how to thread. Thread holder. And then if you have, everything's falling. If you have this is to hold your thread in place so it doesn't slide off the thread holder. This is the thread holder here. Remember your turn dials on the side and your turn dials here. And you want to make sure that you always turn it towards you to lift your needle up and to lift up that metal piece inside there. And back all the way up so y'all can see what I'm doing. So remember, I have this piece right here that I need to put the thread through. So, and I make a backwards L to do that. Thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Thanks, Team Nikki. I appreciate you. We'll be back on Wednesday, so you can tune back in then. All right, make the backwards L, go through there. And then remember, we always snip the tip of our thread so that it's easier for us to thread our needle. And make sure your thread is not wrapped around that needle. And thread. If you need to, some machines have automatic threaders. You can use your automatic threader. And you can also buy this little piece. It's like a metal, it has like a little metal V at the end that helps you. Thanks for the love, guys. I appreciate it. That helps you thread your needle. I had it in the camera right on now. Or you can just freestyle thread it. I promise the more you thread your needle, the easier it becomes. Okay, so I have the top threaded, which is what you want, and now you put your bobbin in. Remember, when you have a drop bobbin like this, let me show you what I mean by drop. Drop means it is at the top of your machine. Some machines you go in through the front. This is a drop bobbin. So when you have a drop bobbin, you hold your bobbin out. Your thread is coming off the back of your bobbin, going to the left. You drop it. There's arrows in here to show you how to go around. And then there's a blade at the end of that to cut it. Hold your top thread. Go turn it towards you. You're bringing that bottom thread up to the top. Hold that thread, pull just a little bit, and you'll see it come up. And it came up. You don't have to pull it up, but I like to show what it looks like when it's being pulled up. So Thanks, Tasha. I appreciate that. So here is that bottom thread here. Put your plate back on. All right. And then once you get your threads in place, your threads go through the foot. This foot has a slit on it through the foot and to the back. And you are ready to rock and roll. All right. So the first thing we're going to do, let me move this out of the way. Is we are going to so remember we're sewing this on the wrong side. So this is a leftover piece from my tote bag. So it is closed on the end. You can have two separate pieces of fabric, but mine is closed on the end, which means so I have one long piece. But I'm going to turn it on the wrong side and then fold it back. Remember, we want our corners to match. We are going to pin this down. And I don't need to sew around on the side that's already closed, but for class sake, we're going to pretend as if it is open, and I'm going to show you how to do a box stitch. We did this on the tote bag, but it don't hurt to do it again because you'll do this quite a few times. So again, we're going to start with pinning, and when you pin, you want to make sure that you are not pinning too far in. You want to be close to the edge, but you don't want to hang off the edge. So you go in and up. And it does not matter which way your pin top is hanging off. It could be this way or it could be this way. Just make sure you're pinning, because we're going to sew this way. So you always pin the opposite way that you're sewing. So if you're pinning the opposite way, that means you're pinning up and down. Okay? So here we go. And we'll do it like that. Always good to have a pin cushion, a pin box, or a pin magnet close by so that you have quick access to your pins. And not too many pins, because remember, we're sewing and we don't want to have to stop every 2 seconds to take a pin out. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. If you have two separate pieces, then you would rotate it and you would go ahead and pin here. And the reason why we pin is to make sure that your fabric stays lined up while you are sewing. That's why I pin. Because sometimes when you are sewing, your fabric can shift. And so we want to make sure that it stays together. So that when you're sewing, you know you're sewing top and bottom. And you don't want to put one at the very end because you want to give yourself space. So I'm going to move this one because this one's kind of close to the end. So you want to give yourself space to start to get your fabric under the foot. Okay, so you notice I did not pin here because we have to have an opening. So we're going to sew all the way around. And then we're going to stop. So you start at one end and you're going to stop at the other end. So here we go. All right, so I'm threaded up. My machine settings are good to go. And remember, you put your fabric in. Foot match the edge of your fabric. Foot down. Remember, you don't want to put it at the edge. You want to be able to clear the hole where your thread is coming through. So foot down, needle down. You are going to back stitch. Remember, the harder you press the pedal, the faster your machine goes. So you want to Start slow, and you always have your hands on your fabric. Let me give y'all, I want y'all to have a better view. I'm gonna kind of tilt so y'all can see what I'm doing. Yep, that's better. Okay, so fabric's in place, foot match the edge of the fabric, and then remember we back stitch, which is the same thing, equivalent to putting a knot in the end of your needle. So you're gonna sew. We do not sew over pins. Back stitch. We back stitch to make sure our end is closed and it does not come apart. My eye is right here because I'm making sure that my foot stays lined up with the edge of my fabric. That way I know that I'm sewing a straight line. You don't want to take your pins out too soon because you don't want your fabric to shift on you, but you don't want to get too close either. Remember, your hands are just guiding your fabric. You're not pushing or pulling, because if I just sew with no hands, it's going to pull the fabric. But if you notice, it's going to not stay lined up. So, Tasha, to keep your straight line, match your foot up with the edge of your fabric, right? And then almost like driving a car, right? So you want to stay in your lane. So if you see that you're getting away from being lined up to the edge of your foot, then you're going to slightly just kind of shift your fabric back over. Don't jerk it. Don't lift your foot up and scoot it over, because you're going to have what I call a lightning bolt stitch, which is kind of like a gap, and you'll see it on the other side. So if you have a problem keeping it lined up, just keep your eye here, and then just you're lightly moving it back and forth just to make sure it stays. So just, to me, it's equivalent to driving. So when we get to this corner, remember, we're not going to take it out. We're going to turn that corner. So my needle is up. I'm going to put my needle down. Needle down first. Needle down holds your fabric in place, so you don't have to worry about your stitches being off. And you're not cutting thread, which means we don't have to backstitch again, because we've already did the backstitch, and we're not cutting any thread to make anything loose. Lift your foot and turn. So again, when you get to the end, not to all the way to the end, because we're still looking at seam allowance. You want to make sure your needle is down first before you lift your foot. If you lift your foot and your needle is up, your fabric is going to shift, and that's what we don't want. Needle down, foot up. My fabric's not going anywhere. All right, and then you're going to rotate your fabric. And then this machine won't let me sew if my foot is up. Some machines will. So you want to make sure that you put your foot down, and then sew. Start sewing again. So foot down, take that pin out. And yes, I know this side does not need sewing, but some of you may have two separate pieces, and it's the same process as sewing the tote bag. So I want to make sure that you see it both ways. So if you have a folded edge, you don't have to sew here. You could do it. You could sew to the end and back stitch, and then go back to the top, and then sew the other side down. Same thing here. We're going to come not to the edge, but all right. My needle is up. So needle down. You're going to turn, foot down, foot up, turn, foot down, foot still match with the edge of your fabric. And then when you come to the end, we're back at the other end, the top, you are going to back stitch to make sure you have that top all the way closed. Thanks for the love, guys. I appreciate it. All right. My foot is already up. My needle is already up. So foot up. Remember, when you pull, you want to snip your threads at your fabric. You do not want to snip your threads back here. You want to snip at your fabric. That way you don't have hanging threads. And then go back to the other side where you started, because you will have threads there hanging. And then you're going to snip there as well. No hanging threads, y'all. Okay, so we have our back sewn. Okay, and this is all sewing machine. So what I'm gonna do is, thanks for the gift, I appreciate it. All right, y'all, so we're gonna hand sew. I'm gonna show you how to hand sew what we just did on the machine. So thread my needle real quick. Remember, when you're hand sewing, you don't want your thread too long because you don't want it to get tangled up. You can always rethread. So if you're not familiar, so I put the thread on my needle, doubled it, make sure it's straight. And then my two ends are together. I do either you can do a loop and then bring it, I call this the tail. So you can do a loop and bring the tail through and pull. That makes a knot, it's a little baby knot. Or you can wrap around a finger and roll it off. I like the loop, especially when my hands are not greasy. And then I try to do the knot in the same place so you get a bigger knot. Try to put it against my shirt so you can see what I'm talking about. Now my tail's a little bit long, but that's okay. And then you just make sure it's doubled and it is straight. So if you're doing this by hand, you want to start at the end. And then it doesn't matter which side you start on. This is the inside of the fabric. No one's going to see it. So you start at the end and then you go in. Your knot is going to stop you. And then let me adjust. So I'm not having to bend down to show you all this. It's better. Okay. So you go in and your knot stops, right? But we want to make sure it's in really good. So I'm on this side So I'm going to go in 3 times. Let me face it this way so y'all can see what I'm doing. So I want to go in 3 times. It's better. And I'm just making another knot. So it's 1. See what my thread wants to do? It wants to tangle up. When it does that, don't keep going. Stop and straighten up your thread because we're not sewing messy. 2. And a 3rd one, which creates another knot, which is what you want because we're making sure everything is secure, especially with this project. Since we're putting rice inside here, we don't want any holes at all. So we want to make sure it is nice and secured. All right, and then we got the fan method, which is my favorite because it gets it done quicker. I'm going to move down just a little bit away from my sewing machine stitch so you can see. So fan method, and you sew a straight line with this. I call it the fan method because when we were little, I used to make paper fans and you just fold the paper back and forth. You get so many on your needle and then you pull. Get that tangle out. We don't want it. Never snip your threads. If you have a tangle like that, it's better to work it out than to snip. Because if you snip your thread, you got to start over. And my threads are uneven, so I'm going to pull them back and even it back out. Make sure it is flat. Because what can happen if you pull this too tight, then what happens is it does this. We are not making gathers. Not tonight, not on these projects. So you want to make sure that you pull it down tight. Okay? And so, let me get on my table so y'all can see. All right, so here we go. We're going to fan stitch it. If you don't like the fan stitch, then let me finish this one. I'll show you how to do a shorter stitch or a different, it's the same stitch, it's just a different way of doing it. So you would go in, pull, and up, pull. Don't move your fabric, move your needle and thread. So keep your fabric facing you. You go in, and then you want them kind of close together. Because again, this is going to be filled with rice, but we also don't want large gaps. And so if you spread them apart, you'll have large gaps. So in, pull, and back up, pull. Can y'all see that? Okay. So when you're gonna go around, when we get to that corner, so I'm just gonna skip down so I can show you can see how to turn this corner. So we're gonna start like back here. So do the fan stitch real quick. Remember, the less you put your needle in, the shorter your stitch is, which is what you want. You don't want it to be long, because if your needle is this long and you go back in, your stitch is going to be that long. You do not want long stitches like that. So I'm going to say it's almost like about right there is a good distance. And with the fan stitch, you can back up. You can back up your needle if you need to before you pull all the way through. Once you pull your needle through, it's through. I've had students who's like they pulled it through, but it was an accident. You can't take it out. You cannot. That's when you have to snip it, and we don't want to snip the rest. We don't want to start over. Okay, so I am at the edge of the fabric. And then all I'm doing is rotating, just like I did on the machine. I'm going to rotate that fabric, and then I'm going to keep going. But I'm going to go this way, right? So, again, I'm doing that fan stitch. But I just turn the corner. I just turn the light off so y'all can kind of see it a little bit better. I hope. Okay, so this is, if you do not have a sewing machine or you just want to hand stitch, then this is what the hand stitch would look like. Okay, so now I'm going to yep. Where are you? And I'm just removing the hand stitch so we can continue on. Okay, so now that we have this part completely sewn, so now we're going to flip it. And remember, this is a 9x18 piece of fabric. You do not, it doesn't need to be this big. It can be smaller. These are healing bags that we're making. We're going to fill them with rice, and if you have it, you can use lavender. You can also use chamomile. That's also a relaxing herb, and it's a good aromatherapy as well. So when you heat it up, especially, you're going to get all of that. So not only will this help whatever ache you're using it on, but the aromas from the lavender and the chamomile or chamomile are going to be great as well. So this is our bag, and then 1 or 2 bags of rice. We're not going to fill this up where it's like a pillow. It has to be fluid inside, because you want it to be able to move. You don't want it stuffed. So I went to my local market and I get it by the pound. This is probably a pound of rice. And so all I'm going to do is, and this is why I say you don't want big stitches, because your rice is going to fall through. So you want it, and you want this to last as well. These are good. These are great gifts, especially holiday gifts, because especially if you have older people who they just want to put something on their knee or their ankle or their foot or their shoulder, whatever, to soothe them, and then you add the lavender and the chamomile. What? So these are great gifts. I have made them for aunts and my family, and they really liked it. So I'm just emptying the rice into the bag. So you see, the rice is here. So I could have made the bag like right here. But again, I could use more rice, but for class purposes, you get the idea. It's very fluid and it's loose in the bag, which is what we want it to be. All right, and then because I am fancy and I like the healing properties of lavender, so I am putting dried lavender dried lavender herbs, y'all, into my bag as well. Oh, it smells so good. And I'm just putting just a few handfuls in. Okay. All right, so another reason why we don't want to fill this bag up, because we got to close it. And if you fill it up a lot, then closing it is going to be, you can hand close it, you can close it by the machine. I like to do machine closing. So, and it's the same way with pillows. If you fill the pillow up where it's really, with a lot of stuffing, then you're going to have to close it by hand, which is not a bad thing, but we want to machine close it, so make it simple, keep it simple. So like we did before, we're gonna fold this in 1 inch. So, but this time, unlike the tote bag, hold on y'all, the thread got me hostage. Come on now. Unlike the tote bag, we're going to close this. We don't need to leave it open like we did in that circle for the tote bag. So here we go. So we are going to always have your ruler or your tape measure with you or close by. I like to start at the seam, and you do not have to open this up. You can leave it one-sided. You don't have to open it. So I'm going to fold in 1 inch all the way around. Well, yeah, all the way around. You want to measure it to make sure you are at that inch. And then you're going to make sure, so my seam is right here. This is my seam. This is how I'm going to have a straight. It's going to be even all the way around. And you're going to pin. Remember, you always pin the opposite way you're sewing. And the back kind of closes on its own. It'll do it on its own. But I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So I'm going to the other seam. Snip threads. So I'm going to the other seam, and I am going to do the same thing. You do not have to open it, but I'm going to be good today, and I'm going to open up this side so you can see. Open it up, fold down 1 inch. And opening your seam up on this project, it's going to just give you a flatter. It's going to just not be as bulky. Because this is a bag and we're not using it, it's not clothing or apparel, then it's okay if you do not open it up. That's why I give you the option. A little too much. All right, 1 inch. And then I'm going to make sure that when I fold it over, my seam is there. And then I'm going to stick a pin there. All right, now when I pull it, it's kind of going to do its thing. It's a little off, but I'm going to tuck. It's easier if I lay it down. I'm going to tuck it down. I will check to make sure. I'm in 1 inch. Yes. Because I really only need 1 more pin. We don't want to pin it a lot. This is a good mistake. Make sure when you pin that you pin on the same side. So let me stick this pin in since I already have it folded. Make sure when you're pinning, you pin all your pins on the same side. You see that? It's on the wrong side, which means how am I going to get it out when I start sewing here? I'm not going to reach under and get this pin. So always make sure your pins show up on the same side. So take that out and flip it. And again, does not matter which way the top of your pin is going, as long as it's going the opposite way that you're sewing. Okay, so let's close this up. Before I use the machine, I'm gonna show you how to hand sew. Close it up. Put a knot back in my thread. I like to do, if I'm doing around the finger, I like to do it twice so my knot is pretty thick. Make sure my thread is tight. Hand sewing this, same thing. You want to make sure your pins are on, your pins are facing you. And then, it doesn't matter which way your knot is going, but I like to not see it. So in, and then do that 3-stitch knot. My pin is really thick, y'all. My needle is thick, so it's gonna have to be a little bit wider. Wrapped around my pin, so I'm just gonna release that. And I'll just straighten out uneven thread so that it evens back up. All right, that's 1, 2, and 3. Remember, this is just making another knot. Sure, we have the knot back here where we put the knot thread initially, but we want to make sure that it is totally secure, so we just make another knot on the fabric. All right, and then we don't want you there. While I'm here, I'm gonna cut both my tail and that frayed piece of thread of fabric. Now, keep your pins, keep it pinned up so that your fabric still stays together. And then close to the top, not too close, but you do want to make sure that you are closing in both layers. So in, and you want these to be small stitches at the top, because again, we don't want this rice falling out eventually. We want it to stay. And if you want to, you can go over this twice with your hand stitch. The reason why my stitches may be a little bit big here is because my needle is a large needle. So I would suggest a smaller, finer needle to do this project. I just grabbed the first needle that I found. So, and up. And I'm actually going to do this whole side with hand sewing. Then I'll come back to the machine. Get so much on your needle and then pull it through. Once you clear that pin, you can pull it out. Make sure if you have thread clogs that you straighten them out. Don't keep pulling, because sometimes it'll cause a knot and you don't want that knot. Don't pull it too tight, because we do not want it to do that. We don't want it to gather. I have a little bit of a little loop right there, and what that means is my thread is uneven on this side. So I just pull them apart and pull one of them until that loop pops out, and then make sure my thread is back straight. Smooth it out, and let's keep going. And I'm still making sure that my fabrics are well put together. You do not want to have uneven fabrics, because then you'll miss it. You'll miss one side and you'll have a hole. And when I say miss one side, so if your fabrics are not together, your fabric shifts, right? It shifts and it's not together. So if I keep sewing along here, I'm not catching this fabric and it's a hole. So that's one of the reasons why we pin. And even though I have it pinned, I still kind of pinch it with my fingers to make sure that it stays together. fan stitch close to the top. Go around that pin. That's all I can fit. So I like to pull it with one finger to make sure that it doesn't become uneven where I have loops that I have to pull out, and to make sure it doesn't get tangled up. And I can already see that it's a little bit uneven already, so I like to fix it before it gets all the way in too tight. Smooth it out, remove that pin. In this portion of the video, I am doing the fan stitch along the top end of the bag. And I'm just doing a straight stitch along the top side of the bag. Not too close to the top, but not too deep in, because you still want to make sure that your seam allowance is good, but not really thick. And we've already folded it in 1 inch on both sides to make sure that we have no holes as we sew along the top. As you come to a pin, you just want to take the pin out as you go. Please don't unpin before you get to it, because you want the pins, make sure that your fabric stays lined up and that you don't miss your back fabric or the fabric on the back side of what you're doing. Because remember, we're not flipping our fabric back and forth, we are flipping our pin back and forth. And then when you pull it, you make sure you don't have any tangled threads. And if you do have any tangles, take a moment to stop and pull them straight, pull them taut, so that you can continue on and smooth your stitches out so that you don't have any gathers and you have a flat area. All right, almost at the end. So I'm pulling it a little tight just to make sure my threads are, but this is what I do not do that. Okay? So if that happens before you start making your knot at the end, make sure you pull it. And I just take my fingernail and go across it just to smooth it out. This is how you would hand sew close this bag. It is close, y'all. My stitches are small enough where nothing will seep through. Let me just show you. It ain't moving. So this is a good stitch length. Then I'm going to do my 3 at the end. That one don't count. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna snip my thread long enough so I can make another knot. Pull it apart, and then 1 and 2. This allows you to snip your threads close to the fabric so you don't have to worry about having a tail. You'll have like a little minuscule, but you don't have to worry about it coming apart. So that's the hand sew of that. Machine sew. I'm putting my pins back in just for teaching purposes so that you can watch me remove my pins, even though it is secured down, but we're gonna act like it's not. Remember, your pins all go on the same side. Threads through the foot and to the back. So you want to make sure all the rice is at one end of the bag. All my rice is down here, and then here's my top. So you're going to put it in, foot match the edge. Let me scoot that over. Too close to the edge. Foot match the edge, foot down, needle down. Sew a few stitches and then back stitch. All the way to the end. I'm off a little bit. Back stitch. Sew it out. My needle's already up, foot up. Pull. Remember, snip your threads at the fabric. And then go back and snip your beginning threads. All right, y'all. That's project number 2. Can y'all hear it? You want it fluid in the bag. You want it fluid. This is the bag. It is, so this is the top of it. You see the hand sew, and then you see my machine sew underneath it. Even, and this is the reason why we went 1 inch down with the folding into the fabric. So we folded in 1 inch down, because you see how low my sewing machine thread is, because you can probably see it better on this side in the rainbow. It's down low because I can still, my fabric ends down here. Because if we had fold it down like 1/4 inch, we would miss it. So that's why I have us sew it down, had us fold it down 1 inch. Okay, so this is it. You do not have to make it this big. This is 9 by 18. This is 9 by 18. I probably could have went 9 by 9 if I wanted a smaller one. But you still need to make sure that you have, your rice is fluid in this bag. Okay, this again is a healing bag. Y'all should smell this thing. It is so amazing. Now, instructions. When you do make these, and especially if you give them as gifts, you want to give instructions. Y'all know rice holds heat, and so you want to heat it for like 15 seconds. So 15 seconds, and then see if it's warm enough. And if not, do it in 15-second increments. If you use it as a freezer, if I were you, I'd make 2. I'd have one for the freezer and one that I would heat. You can use one bag both ways. You don't have to have 2. Freezer is freezer. Just make sure that when you lay it on, if you're laying it on your body part, make sure that it is covered with a towel underneath it, because you just want to be safe. So 15-second increments in the microwave, and then just see how it may steam, and that's okay. And if it's too hot, just let it sit on the counter for a little bit until it kind of cools off. These are great gifts. Thanks, Marsha. These are great gifts. Great gifts. And it doesn't have to be a holiday gift. It could be a birthday gift. You can get fancy with it and make this and add some other little things to it. You can do mini ones, like little mini bags, which we'll probably do that next class. So you'll need a 4x4, a square, 2 of them. So 4x4 square for the next project. Come on, y'all. Okay. So 4x4, 2 4x4 squares for our next project in class on. I hope y'all enjoyed this class. Remember, these are healing bags filled with rice, and I have lavender in here. You can fill them with chamomile as well. Make sure your rice is a dry, doesn't matter what kind of rice, dry rice and raw rice and dried herbs.